Hello and welcome to the Canyons Are Calling podcast. I'm Cheryl, your host for the show. So, I just lost a week of my life. I have not been this sick in a really long time. And you can probably tell in my voice that I've still got a bunch of congestion and head stuff going on. So, I am going to keep this intro short. I hope that I don't have a coughing attack in the middle of it. Yeah, and I'm not going to do an outro on this one because I just don't think that my voice is going to be able to handle it. I've honestly had a headache and body ache for about a week. Then it went into congestion and head pressure and sinus issues, and that's been going on for about 4 days. So I feel like I'm kind of on the mend, but you can tell in my voice that I still have some stuff going on. So yeah, I apologize for the delay in the podcast this month, but I just couldn't see to be able to focus and edit. So, yeah, lame. Anyway, like I said, I'm going to keep this short because I got to save my voice. Today we are here talking with Russell Ray about a book that he wrote called Canyons of the Mind. And this is about an exploration that he did in the 90s in the Copper Canyon area in Mexico, where he was the first ascent of Barrancas Sinforosa. I totally butchered that. and Batopilas. Anyways, he did 3 canyons in the Copper Canyon area, and he tells the stories of their adventures, their misadventures, and then also just a bunch of other stuff that came up during his trips. So it was a very interesting read. I personally am not a huge reader, so I listened to it on Audible. Gonna say the British guy that did the voiceover was kind of hard to listen to. He's pronounced a lot of things wrong, which is kind of funny, but also a little annoying. But all in all, it was a good listen, and I really enjoyed the stories that Russell was telling. So I highly recommend it if you're just like an adventure story, not really technical canyoneering, but just adventures of them exploring these waterways in the Copper Canyon area. So without any more jabbering on, I will have links to where you can get the book in the podcast show notes. You can get it on Amazon and a bunch of other places. I listened to it on Audible, and then I'll also have links to where you can get in touch with Russell if you'd like to talk to him more about his book or his stories, all those things. Okay, enjoy. Good morning. Today we are here with Russell Ray. How you doing, Russell?
I'm doing well.
So we are here today to talk about your new book, Canyons of the Mind. But before we get into that, could you tell us just a little bit about like where you grew up and how you got into the outdoors?
Okay, I was actually conceived in the state of New Mexico, but I was born in the state of Mississippi. Being in Mississippi is where it came to me that I really love to be outdoors. That's what my main emphasis in life was, always to be outdoors. And so I grew up traveling the world. My father was in the military, and everywhere we went, it was always about exploring the outdoors. And so that led to me seeking a career working in the outdoors. So I ended up fighting wildland fires for like 13 seasons. I was a wilderness ranger for the Forest Service. I did search and rescue, wilderness EMT, trail work, riparian surveys, the whole 9 yards of being an outdoor-oriented person. And that's how I guess you could say, drifted into canyon exploration. First time I went to Copper Canyon in 1987, I didn't even know the place existed till a friend suggested it for a spring break trip for an outdoor club we were members of. And after that, I just kind of got hooked on the place.
Where is Copper Canyon?
Copper Canyon is in the state of Chihuahua, Mexico. It's in literally what is the Sierra Madres, but they delineate and they call it the Sierra Tarahumara, where the Tarahumara or Raramuri live. From where I was living in Silver City, New Mexico, which is way south, about 50 miles or so from the Mexican border, it took 8 hours of driving to get to basically the Copper Canyon country. So it was basically
Nice.
my backyard.
Right. That's 8 hours isn't very far at all, retrospectively. Especially if it's a beautiful 8 hour drive, right?
It is very beautiful, definitely.
So tell us a little bit about your explorations there and a little bit about the book.
Okay, so in 1987, we only had the spring break to go to the canyon. We got to the canyon. We managed to drop down to the bottom. It's like 5,000 feet deep at that point to get to the Rio Urique at the bottom of Copper Canyon. And we were able to spend just a couple of nights. And then we had to climb back out of the canyon and return to the United States because spring break was over. But that was in 87. In 1990 is when I got it in my mind to return and do a trip going upriver for approximately 7 miles and to climb out at a different trail. And that's when I started conceptualizing what canyoneering must really be about, because I had started hearing people speaking in terms of canyoneering, and I really did not know too much about the pursuit. So when I decided to put together an expedition in 1991, it was with the intention of descending the entire canyon, but to go downriver instead of going upriver like we had done, because I figured it would make more sense to descend than to ascend. Yeah. And so I had to put a lot of thought into what it would require, and certainly came to the idea of wetsuits because it was going to be cold in the water. Came to the idea of waterproof floating backpacks because I figured we would do a lot of swimming. And all of that ended up being true. It took us a total of 2 weeks to descend from the bridge at Umira all the way to the village of Urique, which essentially that's passing through the what would be considered the technical stretch of the river. And it was quite beautiful, very enchanting. And I was really hooked on the idea of canyoneering. But they're not slot canyons. These are really big canyons, 5,000 feet deep. To look into them is like looking into the Grand Canyon in Arizona. The rivers drop with a greater gradient than the Colorado. The Colorado, I believe, is average of 25 feet per mile. The Barrancas drop approximately 125 feet per mile.
Wow.
And the rivers are not as voluminous unless they're flooding. It's just that they've had all these thousands, tens of thousands of years to cut to the depth that they have. So when I speak in terms of Las Barrancas del Cobre, there are 3 canyons. They're all barrancas. There's the Barranca del Cobre. There's the Barranca Sinforosa, which is the largest one. And then there's the Barranca Batopilas. And over the span of 4 years, 4 expeditions, we managed to make it through all 3 of them. And I had really, really convinced myself when we did Copper Canyon, the first canyon, that we were the first. But I just had a feeling after we finished it that there's no way we could have been the first. And sure enough, I found out about the person, Dick Griffith, who did it in 1952, which was like 8 years before I was even born.
Wow.
He did it with his wife. And so I connected with him. We've become real good friends. He's almost 100 years old. He lives in Alaska. His real claim to fame is he's considered the father of pack rafting. And he's totally
Wow.
an amazing person. He's written a book, Canyons and Ice, about his adventures, not just in the Copper Canyon, but in Alaska. And he's so funny. He told me the last time he was in Copper Canyon was 1987, and he jokingly inquired as to why we didn't run into each other. And he knows darn well why we didn't run into each other. The area is immense. He
Yeah.
had a totally horrible experience on that trip. He was accosted by drug runners, and that was my first trip there, and I had a totally wonderful experience. So, and
Wow.
Dick went on to tell me that if he would have known about the Barranca Sinforosa, and if he would have known about the Barranca Batopilas, he would have beat me to doing those. But he didn't even know they existed. So
Interesting.
anyway, we've kind of recognized each other's accomplishments in the area.
Yeah.
And he definitely is the person that I wanted to do a forward for my book, and he consented to do that.
That's really awesome. Almost 100. That's an incredible, awesome life lived.
Yeah, he is totally amazing. Definitely. He's very, very famous in Alaska. Super famous.
And pack rafting is such a fun sport, so it's cool that he came up with that idea.
Yeah, he asked me why we didn't use pack rafts, and I kind of let him know I didn't even know they existed. It's like I like the idea that we came up with was just a large river bag strapped to frames, backpacking frames, and they floated. And for the most part, they did stay waterproof. And they allowed us to do what we needed to do. The water is super cold. On the Batopilas, I measured the temperature at 42 degrees. It was possible to be in the water swimming for 15 minutes plus. And so even with the wetsuit on, I would be majorly on the verge of hypothermia, like shaking uncontrollably type thing.
Yeah.
I'm very much designed for the desert, for the heat, not so much for the cold. And the wetsuits we were using were the like 3 mil, really light, so you could hike in them. Because
Right.
you do a lot of swimming, but the majority of what you're doing is bouldering and hiking to make it through the canyons. You do a lot of river crossing, but as far as like when you reach a really large box, it's wall-to-wall water, they can be like, approaching 1,000 feet long, so it's a lot of swimming.
Yeah. And like we know now that you can put like a rain jacket on or whatever to help if you have a thin wetsuit to like help insulate. Did you guys know that back then?
Well, we figured on all kinds of stuff that you could like we could take helmets, we could take actually personal flotation devices, stuff like. The problem is that we were going for 2 weeks unresupplied,
Yeah.
and we needed to carry all of that stuff. So even with minimizing, our packs would weigh like 80 pounds at the beginning,
2 weeks of
and
food weighs a lot.
you're carrying that. And we did come up with the technique called walking the dog. You tie a rope to your pack, and so a lot of times you're walking along the bank of the river, and you can pull your pack along, so you're not actually carrying it that time. But yeah, we definitely benefited from such things like you're talking about. But like I say, we had to carry all of this stuff,
Right. I can't remember. Were there rappels in the canyons? There were a couple, right?
Okay, we actually took a bolting kit, and it was not like we had a portable drill or whatever. It was just the hammer drill
Yeah.
thing. And the idea is that if we ever needed to, we could set a bolt to rappel, but it would be on a boulder that would blow out. Like we weren't setting it in the wall of the canyon or whatever, but it would be something, because it was along the lines of leave no trace type
Yeah, kind of
thing.
emergency situation, get you guys out of
Yeah.
the pickle you were in, but not stay forever.
But we never had to actually use the bolt kit. We did have to lower the packs and down climb. But for the most part, there were no rappels. I think on the Batopilas, it comes to mind when we did it the first year, which was 93. We made it to the halfway point. There was a potential of a rappel into the actual flowing river, which was actually in flood.
Mm,
So it ended up to be sort of an insane proposition on my part that we even attempted.
right.
And in a big way, I can thank the gods of my friends who said, "You're insane, Russell, we're not going to do it." And they wanted to quit. So we quit. And we went back the next year to that exact spot. The river was no longer flooding. We were able to stay in the river and make it through. And we didn't have to do such crazy things as rappel into a raging river.
And yeah, like thank the canyon gods for letting you listen to their advice that
Well, thank God for my friends. My good friend Dean Brummer, him and I got involved in quite a few wilderness search and rescue situations. We did a lot of training together, and he was definitely somebody that I respected his knowledge and abilities and thoughts, and he had grown to not trust my judgment at that point in time, and rightfully so, because I think I wasn't so much obsessed. I was threatened to go solo, which was not a smart idea, but I think I was just really super disappointed that we weren't going to make it through on that trip.
right, you
Because I
have your
really
eye on the
wanted to do it.
prize. You've put all of this time and effort into getting there. Like it's
But when we went back
understandable.
a year later, it just made perfect sense. The
Yeah.
rain that we had been dealing with on the previous trip, it was raining pretty much every day, and the river was rising. The canyon is like 5,000 feet deep, and that's like a really, really big watershed
Yeah.
that can really, really flood majorly. And so we were very fortunate that never became an issue. We were able to call it, come back the next year and do it with lower water, and live to tell the tale, basically.
Right, probably had a better experience than you would have too if you were fighting the high water flow and like trying to survive getting through. Like at least
Exactly.
you could relax and enjoy the canyon when it was lower
Well,
flow.
the weird thing is that the idea would have been we would have had to have thrown our packs into the river, rappelled down, and then caught up with them. This all
Like
seems
hopefully
really
you
sketchy.
can catch up with them. I remember this
Yeah,
part in the
this
book
all
now.
seems very sketchy, but because I'm
Yeah.
reminded of the times that people did lose their packs to the river, and we had
Yeah.
to deal with retrieving the packs, because that's where all the supplies are in,
Right.
and it could be very, it had a real touch and go kind of feeling to a lot of those situations. But like each canyon took 2 weeks solid to get through. And, we were really trying to be mindful of avoiding any superfluous injuries, orthopedic injuries. You had to watch out for snakes. You had to watch out for quicksand. You had to definitely consume calories, and try not to get hypothermic, and then on the other hand, try not to overheat also. So it was like definitely a mixed bag of testing our outdoor knowledge, our experiences that provided us with knowledge of situations, and it was kind of like putting it all together on a daily basis, day after day, going down through these canyons and living to tell the tale.
And you didn't go with the same group each time, right? There was different people involved
Okay,
in the
so
stories.
in the end, I had two main partners, Scott Steinberg and Dean Brummer. The three of us are the three that made it through all three canyons.
The three amigos.
The
That's
three
cool.
amigos. But on the various trips, there were other people that were included to go through the canyons with. On the first trip, my ex-wife was on the trip, but she only went to the halfway point. She thought I was insane to even propose doing it, and she loved the trip, and she did really well. But she had gotten it in her mind she was only going to go to the halfway point, and that's what she did. She went to the halfway point, and so like I don't, fault her for not going all the way through. It was like we had a wonderful trip that was very beautiful, and
Nice.
like she had to make a decision that she felt comfortable with. Then on the other trips there were various other people involved of various levels of ability and temperament, and I'm just really glad that I ended up with my two main partners who saw it through the whole thing. They were really incredible.
Yeah. I don't want to give too much away, but I do have a question about the death that you talked about. Like, did they ever
Oh,
find out, like, was he accidentally shot or was it murder?
okay. I'm really glad that you kind of caught that part there. Okay, you think about the end of that story where I ran into his brother down in the canyon bottom.
Yeah.
And his brother was the one going on about how his brother had been murdered. And I just let him vent, like I didn't offer that, oh, yeah, I was there to retrieve his body and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But this is my understanding is that the wife was actually tried and convicted for murdering him
Wow.
some years later. So it was not quite the accident that it was purported to be.
That's so crazy that you guys just happened to be in that area at that time.
Well, no, it was actually an official search and rescue
Oh, one of the search and
mission.
rescues. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was working at the supervisor's office for the Gila National Forest when they called and asked if I would go to basically rescue this person, because to me it was a rescue that I went on.
Yeah.
When I got there at the trailhead is when I was told that no, the person was deceased, so it was going to be then a body retrieval. But
Okay.
yeah, no, it was
I
an
remember
official
now.
mission.
I had gotten it kind of confused. But yeah, you just kind of like briefly mentioned that you ran into him and he was like, my brother was murdered. And I was like, my mind just goes crazy. Like, was it an accident? Was it murder? Anyway,
Yeah,
poor
I
guy.
would
That
like
sucks.
to. I would like to think that I would be a lot better at research, because I did try to research, the particulars, and because I just kept hearing stories, about the particulars of what happened, and Either way, it's tragic. It
Yeah.
involved to death, and
Right.
we were able to get his body removed from the canyon bottom, and
And that's hard on all of
it's
you
like,
guys involved too. So, yeah, tragic. Unfortunate.
yes, definitely.
Well, thanks to all of the search and rescue guys and people that, put their life online for things like that happen. That's awesome for
Search and rescue to me was like just the best thing to get involved with, because it just really put together all of your skills that you had and all of your knowledge. And it certainly beats sitting around watching TV. You get to fly in helicopters, you get to go rescue people. Because a lot of the incidents did involve rescuing people. Now
Yeah.
they do involve retrieving people who are deceased, but still you're using your abilities, to do these things.
Yeah, I really need to do it. I've talked to a bunch of my friends here in King County that are on search and rescue. And my personal fear is I can't handle blood and I'm really empathetic. And so that's what keeps me away. But some of the head people on there are like, your skills come in so great. And a lot of the times in this area, people just get disoriented and they don't have enough water with them. And most of the time, they just need direction and some water and, help them find their way. And it's not all of the time that you're dealing with the
Yeah.
blood and the gore and the tragic things that happen. And so, yeah, just to give back, like I really need to jump on board with this.
Like the part about blood and gore. Okay, you like if you become like a medic, like I was a medic.
Yeah.
I became a medic by taking the course, studying, blah, blah, blah. But I really wanted to not just be a book medic. I wanted to have experience. So I started riding on the ambulance to get experience. And like you go on, an automobile accident or, gunshot victims or whatever, you really hopefully get the practice of divorcing yourself from their emergency. It's not your emergency, it's their emergency. So you need to keep that in mind, that way you can render the aid that you need to. But it's not to say that I was never affected by large amounts of blood. It's like that's just a freaky thing no matter how you look at it, But
Right.
anyway, then you can utilize the knowledge and the growing experience that you've got, and hopefully it can bring a calmness to your action, so you're thinking more clearly, because it becomes really easy to not think clearly when somebody's in pain. There's an emergency situation. You just want to do the right thing.
Right. I've taken a couple of different woofer classes too, and I like the ones where the scenarios that you're working through are like legit and have like fake blood and chicken bones sticking out and like are, super realistic. I've had other courses where it's just like they have a dot of red crayon or whatever, and it's not as realistic. And in my mind, you're like, oh, I'm pretending that this guy has a broken leg. You know what I mean? But when they actually use like mock stuff, it does kind of help condition your mind in that way. So then when you do come across somebody that's like gashing and bleeding, you're like, okay, I can deal with this. It's fine.
So it's kind of like when you work with children and they have bad owies, they have a cut or whatever, they really, really need you to be calm, to help them do that. And I say that in relationship to having your own children get hurt. That's when it's really more difficult to stay objective about things because it's your child who's bleeding or whatever, and you really need to still just take a deep breath and just deal with it.
Yeah, that reminds me of a time when my daughter was playing soccer and I was the assistant coach, and she got nailed right in the nose with the ball. Like, it was kicked super hard, like right at her face, and I thought her nose was broken. And I'm just trying to be like, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay. And the coach was like, you're not okay. Like, he kind of like took me away from the situation because he could tell like I was clearly making my daughter more upset because
Yeah.
I was not calm, but I was trying to make her feel calm. And yeah, I was like, she just has a bloody nose. Clear that up, and life was good.
Yeah,
But it was
that
scary.
reminds
It was
me
scary
of
to see all that coming out.
that reminds me of like how like this whole part about staying calm and being able to function properly. That I am not the most patient person when it comes to dealing with my involvement with other people, because I am very linear. I want things to go a certain way, and a lot of times you come off as being really brusque, like but like in the end, really, I think you just want the best thing. But I'm remembering a search and rescue I went on where a woman had fallen in a canyon, and I almost didn't go on the search and rescue because I figured there was going to be a ton of people there already. But I went ahead and went on the search and rescue, and I showed up, and sure enough, there was a ton of people there, but it was so disorganized, and I just started getting really, really frustrated inside of me. And finally, I started asking questions like, "Who is in charge here?" And a person turned to me and they said, "We thought you were in charge." And I said, "I just arrived. How can I be in charge?"
Right.
But that was my hint that
They
the
needed
universe, I
direction.
guess, was saying,
Yeah.
somebody take command here. And so I said, fine. So this is what we need to do. And we were able to get the patient loaded in a Stokes, and basically we bouldered our way down through a canyon carrying an injured person out of this canyon. And we didn't make it to the trailhead, to the ambulance, till like almost 5 a.m. I was totally exhausted, but
Wow.
you feel good that you were able to muster the wherewithal to just do something like that.
Yeah, for sure. I was just hearing about a fund that you can pay into. I'm going to find that and put a link into it. But it goes to help nationwide search and rescue. It's like $25 a year. And then it just helps with those funds, because helicopter rides, if it's search and rescue, are usually free. Your time is all donated. Your equipment is all donated. And like, there's some search and rescue organizations that just don't have the equipment and the supplies that they need.
Yeah, exactly.
I was talking with a person on our Patreon call last month, and she said that she was involved in a rescue, and they didn't even have simple walkie-talkies. They had runners that were running from the canyon up to a ridge that would run to another ridge to get in, where they had cell service to report what was going on to base. And if they were able to have like walkie-talkies, even, that would just be so much simpler. So yeah, doing fundraising and helping out search and rescue is super important. And if we're all out there recreating, the possibility of somebody we know needing search and rescue, or us ourselves needing search and rescue, is super high the more adventures that you go on. So
no, absolutely. But there has been a movement. I don't think it's ever really taken hold of, like, depending on how much you are at fault for your misadventure, people paying for their rescues, paying for the helicopter time, and compensating,
Yeah.
because people are capable of doing just such the silliest things to getting themselves in predicaments, and granted, we all need to gain experience, and get better at what we're doing, but a lot of times it's just beyond the pale what people are capable of doing. You're like, oh my God, what were you thinking? And then that's when you have to stop yourself and realize they really weren't thinking.
Right. And a lot of times you don't know what you don't know until you learn it, right?
Absolutely.
But yeah, you need to go into the wilderness with the idea that you're going to get yourself out no matter what happens. And then when the emergency arises and you've tried everything you can on your end to get yourself out, right? Then
Yeah, I think you have
Then
to
you
have
can.
the ability to admit that, if you have Providence on your side, you have good luck. A lot of times you can mistake that for, oh, you're so good at what you do. It's like, no, a
Yeah.
lot of times you're just lucky,
Right.
and if it's luck that got you through, then admit it's just luck that got you through. So sure, you have to keep your eyes open and be mindful. Is a storm coming? Is the canyon going to flood? Or, are people going to get hypothermia? Are they going to get hyperthermia? Whatever, it's like,
Right. Plan,
try to just
prepare.
not be paranoid. Enjoy what you're doing, but just be mindful.
100%. Anything else you want to talk about with the book? And also tell people
Okay.
where they can get it.
Okay, so the book is actually now available in hardback, paperback, and it's in ebook, and it's in audiobook now. And all of those are available with Amazon, but they're also available with Barnes and Nobles, and I think I saw Walmart has it. And anyway, it's definitely out there. Now, one thing I emphasize Amazon, because with Amazon, the other sites have the ability to review, but with Amazon, they have basically it's an algorithm tracking your reviews that you get, and it's very important that even if people don't want to write a narrative review, they can hit a star rating to
Right.
rate your book, because your book can die a quiet death, even though you're making sales potentially. If the word is not getting out there via the fact that you're getting reviewed, then it's not going to help with the longevity of your book, because I would like to have my tale be known by people reading the book. It's not just a book for canyoneering. It's not just a book for outdoor adventuring. It's a book about a human experience, in my mind.
Yeah. And how to deal with like the demons that come up while you're out adventuring.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was good. I listened to it. I'm going to say the British guy. Well, I was always laughing when he would talk about the Gila National Forest. He says that
Well,
wrong.
I have to, in the end, I have to
It's
live with
cute.
that fact that I'm presented to the world as a Britisher. There's nothing I can do about that.
Yeah.
But at least he did stay true to my words, even
Yep.
though the pronunciation is a little bit strange at times. But,
Just a little sleep.
I just, like I say, like the stories that I told, you mentioned the search and rescue one. I talked about the person who was placing explosive devices in the Gila National
Did they
Forest.
ever find that guy? That's, yeah.
Apparently not. Apparently there was like a major suspect, but I think that's all as far as that got. But there
It's
was
not still
somebody.
going on, right?
Oh no, no. As far as I know,
That was
that's
years
been
ago.
so long ago that no, I think that has not been an issue for years and years.
That was in the
Definitely.
90s, right? If I remember right.
Yeah, that was in the 90s
That's
that actually
crazy.
happened. So when I was a wilderness ranger for the Gila National Forest is when my involvement with that happened. My partner actually tripped the explosive device. Thank God that one was just designed to make a noise because the next device that was set was designed to fire shotgun shells across the trail, kind of like a claymore mine type thing. And it just got more progressively bigger and bigger devices.
Did people get hurt? Like, did anyone
Not
die?
that I know of, not that I know, but I think
Oh,
that
thank
was just
God.
like by the grace of the gods, that nobody did get hurt.
Yeah.
But then I have the other story in there I tell about getting caught in the giant sneaker wave with my children, which I really appreciated the fact that these things can happen, and hopefully you can live to tell the tale. And my daughter is still, she has a fear of the ocean, and I'm pretty certain it's based on that incident. But we lived.
Right. I must not have gotten to that part yet because I don't know what you're talking about. So I still have
Okay,
about an
so
hour and a half
it's
left.
I think that story occurs right after I stopped talking about the expeditions
Yeah, so it must be
because I
coming up.
I wanted to intersperse stories like that I'm mentioning to juxtapose with the expeditionary stuff. So hopefully people could get the idea that we went on these expeditions, but it wasn't like we just went on these expeditions. It's like I had experience being an outdoors person, and I knew things. So, and then I'm putting it together, and in no way am I making any great claims of this genesis of canyoneering, because we just needed to solve problems to get through canyons, and that led to canyoneering techniques, I guess, that I was not taught or told about, because this was the early 1990s,
Yeah.
and so anyway, we had to just kind of I think I mentioned it in the book. It was like we were flying by the seat of our pants.
Yep. I mean, the definition of canyoneering is just walking through a canyon. It's the technical canyoneering when you get into like the rope work and all that kind of stuff. So it's all canyons. It's all
Yeah,
all
and then
exploring. It's
even
all
then,
fun.
I was talking to a person about that very thing, about how there's so many subsets of canyoneering.
Exactly.
And I'm really amazed by the people who love to just rappel through waterfalls. It's like that I think is really cool, and it certainly makes for really great photos.
Right.
Definitely.
It's
But it's
not.
like like climbing, bouldering, rappelling, just slogging, that's like you say, yeah, just going through canyons. There's actually a site that I became aware of where it's ice canyons that people are all into going through. I'm
I
like,
saw in
oh, that,
Uray they did some of that this winter. That just looks crazy to me. I don't know.
well, it seems like it
Fun.
would probably be really a hoop, but it's like
Hmm.
I really don't dig the cold all that much.
Me
So
either. I'm a desert rat. Like cold hurts my body. And you have to wear so much like extra gear when you're cold. So
yeah,
I don't know.
definitely.
I don't
There's a
know.
whole different area of concerns that you would have,
Yeah.
doing stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, like you say, it makes amazing pictures and the people who do it well. It's good for them. Yeah, I've done a few of the Class C water canyons. And sometimes you're just getting pounded by that water. It's kind of scary. I think I prefer the desert dry canyons, but yeah, I don't know. I have to do more. I definitely need to do more classy stuff because
that's been my only experience really with slot canyons. It's the ones who were there is water, there's pools in them, right? But there's not flowing water,
right?
Because I always figured like, if you're going to get into one of those things and here comes a flash flood, we all know how that ends, right? For people,
right?
So you definitely have to be mindful of the weather, not just in your area, but it actually could be many miles away, that's going to bring the water.
Yeah, the scary thing about like this area and like Buckskin Gulch specifically is like that drainage is 150, 200 miles away from where, people are actually hiking. So it could rain in Bryce. And a day or two later, that's going to come down Buckskin Canyon. And it could be sunny the whole time you're in Buckskin. And you'll never even know that it rained in Bryce. And then this storm comes through.
Exactly.
So Buckskin.
It's kind of crazy. I presume you've been through Buckskin then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I did that one. And we actually did have some sprinkles when we were in it. Like right where we were at. Yeah. And so we spent the night in the canyon, so I made sure to find a place where we could climb up pretty high to just assure that if a wall of water is coming, we're not right there, Yeah. But we were able the next day just to get back in the canyon bottom and complete it, and never had to deal with that. But it's really sad. You hear about people getting washed out of canyons, and it's like it's really becomes really easy to fault people. Well, like there's acts of God that you cannot control. It's like, and I 100%. I never try to equate luck with anything other than what it is, luck. You got lucky,
Yeah.
So like you think about it, on the canyon trips we were on, 2 weeks solid of pushing in a canyon. I got into quicksand. We ran into poisonous snakes. I took a fall off a rock wall. Thank God it was into water, but still, it was like 40 feet,
Wow, yeah.
So it's like, that's because a huge spider climbed onto my hand. And I'm not even really afraid of spiders, but I guess I truncated a fear of falling with the fear of that spider getting on my... It was as big as my hand.
Oh my gosh. I can't even imagine.
We survived, The quicksand incident that comes to my mind is when I was actually hiking solo. This was on the Sinforosa expeditions. We really started fracturing as a group, and we were doing separate hiking, and I got into quicksand, and I had to get myself out of quicksand, and it really planted the thought in my head that we really should try and become more cohesive or try to get that back, but I think it was a little bit too late on that expedition to actually show that kind of cohesion, amongst people. But we made it through the canyon. We did, so the past is the past,
that makes a great point. Like group dynamics sometimes make or break a trip, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's really hard to be in charge of yourself, much less, like dealing with other people, because there's no way everybody's going to think the same or feel the same.
And especially for 2 weeks at a time.
Yeah, 2 weeks. It's a lot of time to spend with people, definitely.
Yeah. Well, I know that canyoneering makes me super hungry. What's your favorite canyon snack?
I just always like to have trail mix. and trail mix can like contain just everything.
Do you make your own or do you just buy it?
I usually make my
Just
own,
mix
just
your own stuff in
mix
there.
it up. But it, it generally contains a lot of nuts, and so you want nutrition to represent what it should represent, the things you need. You need protein, you need carbohydrates, you need fat, and that's what you're going for.
Yep. It's one of my go-tos as well. How about after the canyon? What's your favorite after canyon beverage?
Okay, well, when I used to be a drinker, beer, definitely, and tequila, I'll be honest, but yeah, God, at the end of a trip, cold beers, was just incredible.
Yeah. Even cold water is a great beverage sometimes. Is there an essential piece of gear that you always carry with you?
Okay, well, I think the most essential thing that comes to my mind is the ability to deal with first aid situations. Like you need to be able to deal with the fact that people can end up with a fracture, that people can end up with a cut, they can end up with a head injury. It's really important to be able to deal with those things. You can improvise so much, you really can, but you want things to be sterile, and not, you're just putting your snot rag that you've been carrying around for 2 weeks over somebody's wound, right?
Right.
You want to be able to deal with whatever situation comes along, but like with the packs that we would carry, like I said, they were ending up like being 80 pounds, because you've got all that food and you're carrying your comfort items, because like you need to sleep warm at night, and you need to hopefully have shelter too. A lot of times we could find caves to get in, right? But a lot of times you have to have like a tarp or whatever to stay out of the weather.
I like that you bring that up because a lot of the like basic first aid kits you buy at Walmart really don't have, like, they have Band-Aids, but if you really cut yourself in the wilderness in the backcountry, you need more than a Band-Aid, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So
We would end up with like the ability to suture. Not that I would really, want to subject somebody to that without lidocaine or whatever, but
right, but sometimes it might be
like
necessary. Like, I feel like
yeah,
woofer classes are really important. Like, somebody in the group should be a wilderness first aid person, I think.
I think
At least have taken that course, you know what I mean?
If you're like dividing up roles, it makes life so much easier. Like somebody who's really good at orienteering, like assign that person as that's their main emphasis, and somebody with the first aid, and just so on. It's just like like take advantage of everybody's knowledge base,
And you should
and
always
then. Well, no. What were you going to say?
make sure that you have the first aid kit when you're at the car instead of like when you're in the middle of the canyon and you actually need it, right?
No, absolutely.
So when you're like, okay, who has the rope? Who has the Garmin? Who has the first aid kit? Who has,
Yeah, it's really good to have a gear check kind of thing before you get started. So you mentioned Garmin. Like we were talking GPS here, right?
Yeah.
That down in the canyons, like you cannot get line of sight with satellites. Those things were not.
Another thing
beneficial.
From the Garmin people that I have also heard and I'm trying to relay to people, if you turn your Garmin on when you're at the trailhead, it's more likely that they will be able to find you if you do need it when you are in the canyon.
Oh, yeah. No,
if you
absolutely.
turn it on when you are in the canyon, then you are out of signal and you don't have satellite to be able to find you. But
Yeah.
if you do turn it on before, it is more likely that they can find where you are. There is still some trouble in deeper canyons because it can't really get out and stuff, but the chance of them being able to find you is higher if you turn it on before you start your trip instead of when you need
Yeah.
it. So I'm trying to spread that word too. Because I myself, like, I usually don't turn mine on because when do you ever need it, really, right? Like, I've never needed mine. I just carry it with me. But I'm learning
Well,
to turn
like
it
I
on
said,
now instead.
we never really well, like like I didn't have GPS. Like like I know
Right.
about GPS, but it's like we did have an altimeter because like when you're descending a canyon, you're doing nothing but crossing a series of contour lines.
Yeah.
And if you have maps and you have an ability to know your elevation, you can tell where you're at. And then if you're just doing dead reckoning, where you're like continually paying attention to where you're at, the bends in the river, the whatever features, and then that way if something happens, you can plan an exit strategy a lot better if you have some idea where you're at in that
Hmm.
huge canyon that you might be in.
And that also brings up a good point too, because a lot of people nowadays just rely on their cell phones and their like GPS tracks that they have. And like, what if you lose your phone or your phone dies and then you lose those tracks? So I
Yeah.
always try to have a paper map with me also. And then, like you're saying, knowing how to read those topo lines and how the contours and, knowing how to navigate is also part of that. It's pretty important.
Yeah, it's one thing that we discovered early on was the fact that there are a series of 1 to 50,000 metric topo maps of these canyons that we went through in Mexico. You go to a place called Inege in any large city, you can buy these topo maps, but we would utilize them to track our movement on a daily basis because
Yeah.
they show contour lines, they show elevations, and with the altimeter. And the thing about altimeters is that, you need to periodically calibrate them. You have to reset them, like at a known, you absolutely know you're somewhere, and
Right.
at a confluence, a really good marker is when there's a side drainage coming in
Mhm.
of note, it's going to have water, you know where you're at, you can reset your altimeter, and then that way you're just always, you're doing dead reckoning. You're like just always, trying to be mindful of where you're at, you
Right.
know.
Yeah, for sure. Well, great advice. I like that a lot. What has canyoning brought to your life? How has it impacted you and changed you?
Okay, well, one thing is when I was really into this phase of my life is before I started having children. And when I started having children, I was able to put my life into perspective. Is that like, I had led a life of not just adventure, but in a large way, kind of like ultra adventure,
Hmm.
like exploring these canyons that had never been gone through before, and living to tell the tale. And then, getting involved in, I mean, I fought wildland fires for like 13 seasons. I did search and rescue. I really lived a life of the outdoors. And, now I can take my children, they're growing now, but, like we go out and do things, and I can at least hopefully impart knowledge on them, and, they can be confident in the outdoors. My son, who's 18, the one who helped me set this up, he's going on a backpacking trip today. He's leaving, and I have total faith in him that he knows what he's doing. He knows about hypothermia, hyperthermia. He knows about snake bites. He knows about lightning. He knows all about all the pertinent things that can rain on your parade, when you go out there.
Right, how to deal with them. That's awesome. My dad's the one that introduced me to the outdoors too, so I'm super grateful that he got me.
What a
Camping, at
legacy
least.
you can give your children. It's just a great legacy that, because if they're going to go do it, they're going to go out in the wilderness, that at least they stand a really good chance of just having a good time and then not just being a total disaster, which involves search and rescue. And
Right. Do you think you'll ever take them back to the Copper Canyon area and show them like
I
the area you
want
explored,
to go at Christmas time to take he's now 17. He's a junior in high school, but I want to take him to the village of Urique. And to get there, you have to ride the Chihuahua al Pacifico train from Chihuahua City. You get off at a town called Babochio, and you take a shuttle bus to the bottom of the Barranca Urique, which at that point is like 6,000 feet deep. It's just like looking into the Grand Canyon to be on the rim of it.
Yeah.
And I want to take him down to the canyon bottom, and there's a village down there, and we can enjoy a few days down there, and then maybe come back up, go to the coast. The train ends up at the coast at Los Mochis, and enjoy that there, and then just come back to the States. But basically when we're down the canyon bottom, we can do some hiking, but I'm sort of under orders by his mother to not get him killed, so
Well, you don't want to get him killed anyway, because you want him around.
Yeah,
You definitely want to wait for those grandkids, because they are so much fun.
I actually became a grandfather. My son's wife had a baby in June, and my daughter just had a baby 2 months ago.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, and they're little cuties, definitely.
Yeah, they're fun. I have 6 and my husband has 2, so together we have 8 grandkids.
Wow.
It's fun.
And how many children do you have?
I have 3, and he has 3 boys. I have 2 girls and a boy.
Oh, wow. So I ended up with 1 girl and 3 boys.
Nice.
I love the idea of having children. I wanted children. I became an early childhood educator. I taught pre-K for a number of years. I taught kindergarten, first grade, second grade.
Well,
I just really, I love children's energy.
yeah. I think that's about all the questions I have. Do you have anything else that you want to add before we say goodbye?
Well, and then when I really appreciate connecting with you, I think this is really cool. I had done all this, stuff in my life, fighting wildland fires and search and rescue and canyon exploration. And then when I was able to become a father, I started adjusting my life, to more fit that, because I read about people who are mountain climbers who have families, and yet they continue to really push.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times they die doing that, and so that's just so unfair to their children, Like, start showing your children these cool things, but you've slowed your pace down, because my pace at that time before I had children was just like burning a candle at both ends, I mean, I loved all that stuff. I loved fighting fires, I loved exploring canyons, doing search and rescue.
Yeah. I did it backwards. I had my kids really young, and then I got into canyoneering when I was older. I'm a grandma starting canyoneering. It was great.
Well, I think that it's better late than never, right?
Right. Yeah, I was always like hiking and camping and stuff, but canyons came late.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being on the podcast. I will have information on where to get the book and how to reach out to you and all that fun stuff in the show notes.
I really appreciate you, definitely.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. It was a fun book to read. And like I said,
All right.
I totally was under the impression that it was just a guidebook for the New Mexico canyons. And I was like, oh, cool, New Mexico canyons, let's check this out. And then I got the book and I was like, this is actually a story of like his whole life. So it was definitely more interesting.
Well,
more interesting than I
recall,
thought.
like, if people want to, they can utilize it as a guide to the Copper Canyon region.
Yeah, the Copper Canyon
Because
area.
it does give you the nuts and bolts and particulars of it. But that it was not my intention.
Right.
This is, like, here, just take this book and you can go do this. It's like it talks about my life, basically, my life of the outdoors.
Definitely interesting things that happened in there. It was fun. A fun listen because I don't read, but people that read, people that read will like it a lot. So yeah, I will have information to all of that out there, and I think the canyons are calling. We should probably go.